The smell of oak and sawdust has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. At 5 in the morning, when most people are still dreaming, I would already be in our family workshop preparing wood for the day ahead. For 12 years, I gave everything to Harrison Woodcraft, 60 hours a week, no paycheck. Just a promise that someday this would all be mine. I always believed blood was everything, but some lessons only come when your heart gets shattered. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you have ever felt overlooked by the people who should love you most, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Now let me tell you about the day I discovered the truth. My grandfather started Harrison Woodcraft back in 1962. He set up shop in a small garage on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with nothing but a few hand tools and a dream. Back then, he made simple furniture. Chairs, tables, bed frames, everything crafted by hand with a precision that became legendary in our community. I grew up hearing stories about those early days. How Grandpa would work until midnight, his hands calloused and bleeding just to finish an order on time. How he slowly built a reputation for quality that money could not buy. By the time my father Harold took over in 1985, Harrison Woodcraft had grown into something remarkable. 20 employees, a 10,000 square foot facility, clients from across the East Coast who waited months for our custom pieces. My earliest memories are wrapped in the sounds and smells of that workshop. The whir of the table saw, the rhythmic scraping of sandpaper against grain, the rich, earthy scent of freshly cut walnut. When I was 7 years old, my grandfather sat me down on an old wooden stool and placed a small block of pine in my hands. "Feel that, Noreen," he said, his weathered fingers guiding mine across the surface. "Every piece of wood has a story. Your job is to listen to it." He taught me how to read the grain patterns, how to identify oak from maple just by touch, how to spot imperfections that would cause problems down the line. Those lessons stayed with me long after he passed away when I was 14. When I turned 18, I faced a choice that seemed obvious at the time. I had received a partial scholarship to Penn State for engineering. My guidance counselor said I had potential. My teachers encouraged me to explore options beyond our small town. But when I looked at that acceptance letter, all I could think about was the workshop. "Dad needs me," I told my mother Linda one evening. "The business is growing. He cannot handle it alone." Mom smiled and patted my cheek. "You are such a good son, Noreen. Family first. That is what matters." So I declined the scholarship. I started working full-time at Harrison Woodcraft the week after graduation. No formal employment contract. No salary negotiations. Just a handshake from my father and a promise that echoed in my mind for years. "Work hard, son. Learn everything. One day, all of this will be yours." I believed him. Why would I not? This was my family. This was my legacy. I started at the bottom just like Grandpa had. Sweeping floors, organizing materials, fetching tools for the senior craftsmen. Some 18-year-olds might have resented the menial tasks, but I understood their purpose. You cannot lead a workshop if you do not understand every aspect of how it operates. Within 2 years, I had mastered the basics: cutting, joining, finishing. By 23, I could look at a rough plank and visualize the piece it would become. Clients started requesting me specifically for their projects. "I want the young Harrison to work on this," they would say. "He has his grandfather's touch." Those words meant everything to me. The hours were brutal. I would arrive at 5 in the morning and often stay until 9 or 10 at night. During busy seasons, I slept on a cot in the back office just to save the 30-minute commute. 60 hours a week became my baseline, sometimes 70, occasionally 80, and through all of it, I never received a real paycheck. Dad would hand me cash occasionally, $100 here, $200 there. "For your expenses," he would say. When I moved into a small apartment with my girlfriend Cynthia, he covered the first month's rent as a gift. But there was no salary, no benefits, no retirement contributions. We are family, Mom would remind me whenever I hinted at financial concerns. Everything we have is shared. Why would we need to pay you separately? It made sense at the time, or at least I convinced myself it did. My sister Jessica was 4 years younger than me. While I was learning to operate a lathe, she was studying marketing at Columbia University in New York City. She graduated with honors, landed a job at a prestigious advertising agency in Manhattan, and rarely came home. I did not resent her success. Honestly, I was proud of her. She was brilliant in ways I was not. She understood social media algorithms and brand positioning and market demographics. I understood wood. We were simply different, and I believed there was room for both of us in this family. What I did not notice, or perhaps refused to see, was how differently our parents treated us. When Jessica visited for Thanksgiving or Christmas, Mom would spend days preparing her favorite meals. She would show off Jessica's latest achievements to the neighbors. "My daughter works with Fortune 500 companies," she would boast. "She is going places." When people asked about me, Mom's response was always shorter. "Noreen works with his father. He is good with his hands." Good with his hands. I heard that phrase so many times it stopped registering. I did not realize it was not a compliment. It was a Friday afternoon in late September when my world collapsed. We had run out of a specific grade of walnut needed for a dining table commission. Rather than wait until Monday for the delivery, I decided to head home early and handle some personal errands. Cynthia and I were planning to look at engagement rings that weekend, and I wanted to research options before the stores closed. I pulled into my parents' driveway around 4:30, expecting the house to be quiet. Mom usually attended her book club on Friday afternoons, and Dad should have still been at the workshop. But there were 2 cars in the driveway, my father's truck, and a rental sedan I did not recognize. Curious, I let myself in through the side door, the one that led directly into the kitchen. Voices drifted from the living room. Hushed but intense. I recognized my father's baritone, my mother's higher pitch, and a third voice that made me pause. Jessica. She was not supposed to be home. There was no holiday coming up, no family event I was aware of. So why was she here in the middle of a workday, having what sounded like a serious conversation with our parents? I should have announced myself. That would have been the normal thing to do. Instead, something made me stop just outside the living room doorway. Call it instinct. Call it paranoia. Call it the accumulated weight of small doubts I had pushed aside for years. "The transition needs to happen soon," I heard my father say. "I'm not getting any younger. My back cannot handle the physical work much longer." "I agree," Jessica replied. "But I want to make sure we have a proper structure in place before I take over officially. The branding needs to be modernized. The website is embarrassing, and we need to expand our client base beyond the regional market." Take over. My heart started pounding. I pressed myself against the wall suddenly, very aware of my own breathing. "What about Noreen?" Jessica asked. There was something in her voice I could not identify. Guilt, curiosity, clinical detachment. A long pause. Then my mother spoke, and her words hit me like a physical blow. "Noreen is good with his hands, not his head. He can make beautiful furniture, yes, but running a business, understanding profit margins and marketing strategies and expansion opportunities, that is not his strength. You have the vision, Jessica. You have the education. He is a craftsman. That is all he will ever be. That is all he will ever be." The words echoed in my skull. 12 years, 60 hours a week, no salary, no complaints, and my mother had just reduced me to good with his hands. I do not remember making the decision to enter the room. Suddenly, I was just there, standing in the doorway, watching 3 faces turn toward me with varying expressions of shock. "Noreen," Dad said, his face going pale. "We did not expect you home so early." Clearly. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, controlled, like I was speaking from very far away. Someone want to explain what I just heard? The silence stretched for an eternity. Jessica stared at her shoes. Dad opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. Only Mom seemed unfazed. "We were going to tell you," she said, her tone maddeningly calm. "We were just discussing the best way to handle it." Handle what exactly? The fact that you are giving my inheritance to my sister. It is not your inheritance. Mom's eyes met mine without flinching. It never was. The business belongs to whoever can run it best, and that is Jessica. I turned to my father, desperately searching for some signs that he disagreed. Some indication that 12 years of my life had meant something to him. "Dad." He could not meet my eyes. "It is a business decision, son. Jessica has skills we need. Marketing, strategy. She can take Harrison Woodcraft to the next level." "And what about the skills I have? I am the one who keeps the workshop running. I am the one clients ask for by name. I am the one who has given everything to this company while she was off building her career in New York." "You are a craftsman," Mom said, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. "A very talented one. No one is denying that. But craftsmen do not run companies. They work for them." Jessica finally spoke. "Noreen, I know this is hard to hear, but do not." I held up my hand. "Just do not." I looked at my father one more time. The man I had idolized. The man whose approval I had spent my entire adult life chasing. He would not even look at me. "So that is it?" I asked. 12 years of working 60 hours a week. No salary, no benefits, nothing. And my reward is to become my little sister's employee. "You still have a job," Dad mumbled. "Nothing has to change." I almost laughed. Nothing has to change, as if everything had not already changed. As if my entire understanding of my place in this family had not just been demolished in the space of 5 minutes. I turned and walked out without another word. Behind me, I heard Mom saying something about how I would come around eventually, how I just needed time to process. That night, I told Cynthia everything. She held me while I cried for the first time since my grandfather's funeral. Angry tears, bitter tears, the tears of a man who suddenly realized he had been a fool. "What are you going to do?" she asked softly. "I do not know," I admitted. "I genuinely do not know." The next few weeks were a blur of confusion and pain. Against my better judgment, I kept showing up to work, partly out of habit, partly because I did not know what else to do, and partly, if I'm being honest, because some naive part of me still hoped this was all a misunderstanding. It was not. Jessica arrived at the workshop the following Monday with a laptop bag and a list of improvement initiatives. She set up a desk in the corner of my father's office and started observing operations. The first week, she just watched, made notes, asked questions that revealed how little she understood about what we actually did. Why does this table take 3 weeks to complete? Can we use cheaper wood for the internal supports? Is it really necessary to hand sand everything? By the second week, she was making changes. "We need to streamline production," she announced at an impromptu staff meeting. "I have analyzed the workflow and identified several inefficiencies." I watched my colleagues exchange worried glances. These were people who had worked here for years, decades in some cases. They understood that our inefficiencies were actually quality controls, that the extra time we spent on each piece was precisely what made Harrison Woodcraft furniture worth the premium price. Jessica did not see it that way. Marcus, my best friend since high school and a fellow craftsman, pulled me aside after the meeting. His dark eyes were troubled. "She is talking about bringing in CNC machines," he said quietly. "Automated cutting, computerized finishing. She wants to double output by the end of next year." My stomach churned. That would destroy everything my grandfather built. "It gets worse." Marcus checked to make sure no one was listening. "I overheard her on the phone with your dad yesterday. She wants to let go of some of the older guys, says their wages are too high for the work they produce. She mentioned Thompson by name, and Rodriguez. Thompson had been with the company since before I was born. Rodriguez taught me everything I knew about wood finishing. These were not employees. They were family. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Marcus shrugged, but his eyes were serious. Because someone needs to know. And because I think you are the only one who can stop it. But I could not stop it. I was not in charge. I was just good with my hands. The situation at home was no better. Cynthia watched me deteriorate with growing concern. I had lost weight. I was not sleeping. I snapped at her over trivial things and then apologized profusely, hating myself for taking out my frustration on the one person who had done nothing wrong. You need to make a decision, she told me one night. Either fight for your place in the company or walk away. But this limbo is killing you. She was right. I just did not know which option to choose. The breaking point came 3 weeks after my initial discovery. Jessica called another meeting to announce her modernization plan. Computerized inventory, automated cutting machines, efficiency consultants who would evaluate each worker's productivity, and a new compensation structure that would effectively cut the senior craftsman's pay by 20%. We need to be competitive, she explained, using words she had probably learned in some business school case study. The market is changing. We have to change with it. I looked around the room at the faces of people I had worked beside for over a decade. Thompson with his arthritic hands that could still produce flawless dovetail joints. Rodriguez, who had forgotten more about wood finishing than most people would ever learn. Marcus, who could look at a piece of lumber and tell you exactly what it wanted to become. These were masters of their craft, and my sister was treating them like interchangeable parts. I stood up. I am done. The room went silent. Jessica's smile froze on her face. Excuse me. I said I am done. I have worked 60 hours a week for 12 years without a real salary. I have given this company everything I have, and in return, I get to watch my sister, who has been here for 3 weeks, destroy everything my grandfather built. I looked directly at her. So I am done. If you want my labor, you can pay for it. Market rate, with benefits, like any other employee. Jessica's eyes narrowed. You are being childish. No, I am being realistic. I picked up my tool belt and slung it over my shoulder. Call me when you want to have an adult conversation. I walked out of that workshop for what I thought might be the last time. The fallout was immediate and vicious. Dad called that night furious. How dare I embarrass Jessica in front of the staff? How dare I undermine her authority? Did I not understand how important this transition was for the family? What about my importance to the family? I asked. What about 12 years of my life? You are being ungrateful. We fed you. We housed you. We taught you a trade. That is worth something. So is my labor. 60 hours a week for 12 years. Do the math, Dad. At minimum wage alone, you owe me hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I never asked for that because I trusted you. I trusted that this was a partnership, that I was building something for my future, not just padding your retirement. Silence on the other end. When you are ready to apologize, Dad finally said, you know where to find us. I hung up and blocked his number, then Mom's, then Jessica's. For the first time in my adult life, I was truly alone. 2 months passed. I found temporary work doing custom carpentry for a small contractor. The pay was decent, but it was not the same. I missed the workshop. I missed the smell of fresh sawdust. I missed being part of something bigger than myself. What I did not miss was the constant feeling of being undervalued. The assumption that my worth as a person was limited to what my hands could produce. Cynthia and I got engaged during that period. A small ceremony at the courthouse, just the two of us, and a pair of witnesses we recruited from the hallway. It was not the wedding I had imagined, but it was ours. And somehow that made it perfect. I was in our apartment one Tuesday evening when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I did not recognize, so I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me answer anyway. Noreen, this is Frank, your uncle. Uncle Frank was my father's older brother. He had moved to Florida years ago after a falling out with the family that predated my birth. I barely knew him. Your father is trying to reach you, Frank continued. He asked me to call because you blocked his number. There is nothing to talk about. I understand. And for what it is worth, I think what they did to you was wrong. Your grandfather would be spinning in his grave if he knew. Frank paused. But this is not about your father. It is about Dalton, the big client, Mr. Dalton. The name triggered an immediate memory. He was a real estate developer who had been one of our most valuable customers for over a decade. His orders alone accounted for nearly 40% of our annual revenue. What about him? He is threatening to cancel his current contract. Something about quality issues with his latest order. Your father is in a panic. He said Dalton specifically asked for you. I should have felt satisfaction, maybe even vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. That is not my problem anymore. I know, but I thought you should hear it from someone other than your father. Whatever you decide, I support you. Frank hesitated. Your grandfather was proud of you, Noreen. He told me that before he died. He said you had his gift. I just wanted you to know. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time thinking about my grandfather, about legacy, about what it meant to truly honor someone's memory. The next morning, I received another unexpected call. This time, the caller ID showed a name, Dalton Industries. Noreen Harrison. The voice was cultured precise. This is Gerald Dalton. I believe we need to talk. We met for coffee at an upscale cafe downtown. Mr. Dalton was in his early 60s, silver-haired, and impeccably dressed. He got straight to the point. I have been doing business with Harrison Woodcraft for 13 years, he said. In all that time, I have never been disappointed. Until now. He showed me photos on his phone. A dining room set that had been delivered to his new vacation home. Even in the small images, I could see the problems. Uneven staining, visible glue lines, joints that did not quite align. This is not Harrison Woodcraft quality, Mr. Dalton said. This is assembly line garbage with a premium price tag. I am sorry to hear that, but I do not work there anymore. I know. That is why I am talking to you, not your father. He set down his phone and looked at me directly. I have watched you work for years, Noreen. Every piece you have ever made for me has been flawless. Your grandfather taught you well. I nodded, unsure where this was going. I have a proposal, Mr. Dalton continued. I am prepared to invest in a new venture, your venture. A workshop dedicated to high-end custom furniture run by someone who actually understands the craft. He slid a business card across the table. I have a vacant property in the Riverside Industrial District. 8,000 square feet. It is yours if you want it. I stared at the card, my mind racing. Why would you do this? Because quality matters to me, and because I am a businessman. I see a gap in the market, and I see someone capable of filling it. This is not charity, Noreen. It is an investment. I expect returns. For the first time in months, I felt something other than pain. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. I talked it over with Cynthia that night. She listened carefully, asked smart questions, and ultimately said the words I needed to hear. This is what you have always wanted. The chance to build something of your own. Take it. So I did. Noreen Craftworks opened its doors 3 months later. The facility was smaller than Harrison Woodcraft, but it was mine. Every tool, every workbench, every piece of wood in that building represented a fresh start. Marcus was the first to join me. He showed up on opening day with his own toolkit and a grin. Took you long enough, he said. I was starting to think I would have to work for your sister forever. Thompson came next despite his age and the risk of starting over. Then Rodriguez. Then two younger craftsmen I had trained years ago who had been quietly looking for an exit ever since Jessica's modernization began. Mr. Dalton was true to his word. He connected me with his network of wealthy clients, people who valued quality over speed and were willing to pay for genuine craftsmanship. Within 6 months, our schedule was booked solid for the following year. The journey back from that dark place was not easy. For a long time, I carried the weight of my family's betrayal like a stone in my chest. I would wake up in the middle of the night replaying my mother's words. Good with his hands, not his head. That is all he will ever be. Cynthia eventually convinced me to see a therapist. I resisted at first. Men in my family did not talk about their feelings. But the anger was eating me alive, affecting my work, my marriage, my ability to enjoy anything. Dr. Paulson was a patient woman in her 50s who specialized in family trauma. Over months of sessions, she helped me understand something I had never considered. My worth was never dependent on my parents' recognition. It sounds obvious when I say it now. But when you spend your entire life seeking approval from people who are incapable of giving it, that realization feels revolutionary. I learned to separate my identity from their expectations. To find validation in my work itself, not in their praise. To build a family of my own, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Uncle Frank became a regular visitor. He would fly up from Florida every few months, ostensibly, to check on his investment in my well-being. We would sit in my workshop after hours drinking beer and talking about the grandfather we had both loved. He always knew you were special, Frank told me once. He used to say, that boy has sawdust in his blood. He will carry on the real legacy. He was right. Cynthia and I bought a small house near the workshop. We started talking about children. For the first time in my life, I could imagine a future that was not defined by my parents' expectations. News of Harrison Woodcraft reached me in fragments. Marcus still had friends there who shared updates. The modernization had not gone well. Quality complaints had multiplied. Longtime clients were leaving. 2 of the new CNC machines had broken down within months, and the company could not afford to repair them. About a year after I left, my phone rang with a number I had blocked long ago. I had switched phones since then, so the block had not transferred. Noreen. My father's voice sounded old, tired, defeated. I need to talk to you. I almost hung up, but something made me listen. The company is in trouble, he continued. Jessica, she made some mistakes, big ones. We are in debt to the bank. We might lose everything. I waited, saying nothing. I need you to come back. I need you to fix this. There it was, not an apology, not an acknowledgement of what they had done, just another demand for my labor. No, I said simply. Noreen, please. This is your family's legacy, your grandfather's life work. You cannot just let it die. It is not my legacy anymore. You made that clear. I took a breath, surprised to find that my anger had faded. In its place was something calmer, something that felt like peace. I forgive you, Dad, I really do. But I cannot save you. That is not my responsibility. Then what are we supposed to do? I do not know. Figure it out. That is what people with vision do, right? I hung up before he could respond. A week later, I sent my parents a check for $10,000. Not because they deserved it, but because I did not want their financial ruin on my conscience. There was no note, no expectation of gratitude, just a simple gesture of closure. They never cashed it. Standing in my workshop today, I sometimes think about how different my life could have been if I had never overheard that conversation, if I had swallowed my pride and stayed, if I had let my parents' limited vision define my potential. I would still be there, working 60 hours a week, no salary, no recognition, watching my skills atrophy under my sister's management while telling myself that family loyalty justified the sacrifice. Instead, I am here. I am in a space I built with my own hands and my own vision, surrounded by people who respect my craft and value my contributions. Married to a woman who sees me as I truly am. The irony is not lost on me. My mother said I was only good with my hands. She meant it as an insult, a way to diminish my worth. But she was wrong about more than my potential. She was wrong about what those hands represent. These hands carry my grandfather's legacy. They transform raw wood into beauty. They provide for my family. They create objects that will outlast me, carrying a piece of my soul into futures I will never see. That is not limitation. That is magic. Some lessons can only be learned through pain. The betrayal that nearly destroyed me became the foundation for everything I have built since. Not because pain is noble or suffering is valuable, but because sometimes we need to lose everything we thought we wanted to discover what we actually need. I needed to stop being my father's unpaid laborer and start being my own man. I needed to stop seeking approval from people who could not see my worth and start believing in myself. I needed to stop building someone else's legacy and start creating my own. Have you ever had to walk away from something you loved to find yourself? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss future stories. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that our worth is not determined by the people who fail to see it. Thank you for being here with me today. Whatever you are going through, whatever battles you are fighting, remember this. You are more than what others see in you. Your potential is not limited by their imagination. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who cannot recognize your value. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.